Remote work risks: how 54% of hybrid teams fail without documented communication protocols. So, here's what concerns me about small business risk in 2025. And going into 2026, hybrid work is permanent now, right? We're not in the experimental phase anymore. Companies have made their commitments, employees have structured their lives around it, and yet 54% of these hybrid teams are hitting serious failures. We're talking missed deadlines, duplicated effort, security incidents, team conflict that's tearing apart otherwise solid businesses. And the crazy part? It's almost entirely preventable. The common denominator across these failures isn't bad people or wrong technology. It's the absence of documented communication protocols. Nobody's written down how information is supposed to flow when your team is scattered across locations and days. Let me break down what's actually happening out there and why this matters so much more than most business owners realize. Here's the thing about hybrid work that's fundamentally different from full remote or full in-office. It creates this split reality. You've got two parallel information ecosystems running simultaneously, and if they don't sync up, you're building decisions on completely different foundations. Think about a typical small accounting firm: 8 people, tax season intensity. You know how brutal that gets. The partners in the office Tuesday and Wednesday. During an in-office Tuesday afternoon, a complex depreciation question comes up for a major client. Partner makes a judgment call, discusses it with the 2 people who happen to be at their desks. Decision made, feels settled. Everyone in that conversation is aligned. Thursday rolls around. Different team member, working remotely, encounters essentially the same issue with a different client. They have zero visibility into Tuesday's conversation because it never left that room, so they make their own call, handle it differently, document it their way. Fast forward 3 weeks. Client calls, confused about why they're getting different guidance than their business partner who's also a client. Now the firm has a consistency problem, potential compliance exposure, and 2 staff members who each think the other one doesn't know what they're doing. But the real failure? No documented protocol existed for how technical decisions get captured and disseminated across the team. That's the pattern. The breakdown isn't about competence. It's about information architecture in a distributed environment. Quick thing before we get deeper into this: if you're seeing these patterns in your own business, hit that like button and drop a comment about your biggest hybrid work challenge. Seriously, I read every one of them, and it directly shapes what I cover next on this channel. The security implications are where this gets expensive fast, because when communication protocols aren't crystal clear, people improvise. And improvisation in information security is exactly how breaches happen. Use case that's becoming painfully common: small construction company, maybe 15 people. Project managers are running hybrid schedules. They're juggling contractor bids, client financials, project specifications, sensitive stuff. Company policy says all financial information goes through their secure portal. Sounds good on paper. But here's what actually happens. Project managers working from home Friday afternoon needs to get a bid comparison to the owner urgently. Owner's in the office, and the owner has this habit of not checking the portal when they're in office because they're used to paper documents on their desk. They've said this multiple times. Just catch me when I'm in the office. So, the project manager emails it. Regular email, no encryption, because the documented protocol doesn't address this exact scenario. They're trying to be responsive, trying to serve the business need. 6 months later, that email account gets compromised in a credential stuffing attack. Client financial data exposed. Notification requirements triggered, insurance claim filed, client relationships damaged. You can point fingers at the individual all day long, but the company failed that person. They had a policy, but not a protocol. The protocol would have said, if you need urgent financial information delivered and you're having access issues with the secure portal, you call, actual voice call, this specific person, and they walk you through the process or handle the delivery themselves. No exceptions, regardless of convenience. That's the gap. Policy without protocol doesn't protect you. Let's talk about the coordination breakdown that kills deadlines, because this one compounds in ways that aren't obvious until you're in the middle of it. Picture a consulting firm doing client assessments. Sequential workflow. Person A gathers data, person B analyzes it, person C writes the report. Simple enough. But now, layer in hybrid schedules. Person A is in office Monday and Tuesday. They're doing client interviews those days, gathering information, building context. In their head, they've got the full picture. They start documenting it Tuesday afternoon, but they're in meetings, distracted by people stopping by their desk. You know how office days go. They figure they'll finish the documentation Wednesday when they're home and can focus. Person B is remote Monday and Tuesday, in office Wednesday. Their job is to analyze whatever person A gathered. They're checking the shared drive Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening, nothing's there yet. They assume it's delayed, pivot to other work. Wednesday morning, person A is working from home, finally has quiet time, completes the documentation, uploads it. Feels good about it. Person B shows up to the office Wednesday. Doesn't check the system right away because they're catching up with colleagues in back-to-back meetings. Doesn't actually sit down to work until Wednesday afternoon. Discovers the documentation is there, starts analysis. But now they're a full day behind the timeline. Person B works Thursday and Friday, finishes Friday evening, marks it complete. Person C, who's fully remote, has been checking for this daily. Sees it Saturday morning, but they'd planned other work for the weekend based on the expectation it wouldn't be ready yet. Person C rushes the report Monday, compromises on quality because time's tight. Client presentation is Tuesday. They make it, but barely, and the work isn't their best. Client notices, has questions that could have been addressed with more time. Every handoff in that sequence could have been protected. The protocol would say, data gathering completion means full documentation uploaded to X location with Y naming convention by end of business Tuesday, regardless of where you're working. If you can't meet that, you notify the next person in the chain by Tuesday at 2 p.m. with revised timeline. Analysis completion means documented findings in Z location by end of business Thursday, with notifications sent via specific channel. Here's what people miss. These protocols aren't about micromanagement. They're about protecting quality and timelines when you can't see what's on someone's desk or what's blocking them. The duplicated work problem is pure waste, and it's happening constantly in hybrid environments. You know that sinking feeling when you realize you've spent 3 hours on something someone else already finished? That's not a rare occurrence anymore. It's a structural problem. Use case, marketing agency, small team, client needs, competitive analysis. Creative director mentions it in the office Monday during a casual conversation with one strategist. Also sends a quick Slack message to a different strategist who's remote that day, asking them to pull together competitive insights. Neither strategist knows the other is working on it. Both spend Monday afternoon and Tuesday morning doing research, building decks, pulling together findings. Both deliver Tuesday afternoon. Creative director's annoyed because now they've got redundant work and wasted billable hours. Both strategists feel stupid and frustrated because they did good work that's now partially useless. The fix is stupidly simple but requires discipline. Work assignment protocol says, any project work gets logged in the project management system before anyone starts. Person assigning confirms it's logged with assigned owner. Person accepting work confirms they've seen the assignment and logged their start. Takes literally 30 seconds per assignment. Eliminates duplication entirely. But here's the thing, that only works if it's documented and enforced as protocol. If it's just, yeah, we should probably use the PM system more, it doesn't happen consistently. Hybrid work doesn't allow for probably. The visibility is gone. You need explicit protocols. Team conflict in hybrid environments looks interpersonal, but it's usually structural. This is the thing that surprises people most because it seems like personality clashes or attitude problems, but when you dig in, it's information asymmetry creating perception gaps. Use case that illustrates this perfectly. Professional services firm, hybrid team, working on a proposal. Strategy session happens in the office Thursday morning. 4 people in the room, 2 people remote on the call. In-person group is whiteboarding, building off each other's energy, making decisions quickly. Remote participants can hear the conversation, but they can't see the board clearly, can't read body language, can't jump in as naturally. Meeting ends, In-office group feels great about the direction. Someone takes a photo of the whiteboard, drops it in Slack. Remote team members look at this photo. It's partially blurry, handwriting's unclear, no context about why certain decisions were made. They try to contribute ideas based on what they understood, but their suggestions don't align with what the in-office group envisioned. In-office people start perceiving the remote folks as not getting it or being off strategy. Remote people feel excluded and set up to fail because they're working from incomplete information. Tension builds. People start making assumptions about each other's commitment or capability. The actual problem? No protocol for how strategy decisions get documented. The fix would be any strategy session, regardless of format, gets summarized in writing within 4 hours. Summary includes decisions made, rationale, and clear next steps. Gets posted in designated location. Visual materials get explained, not just photographed. That protocol eliminates the information gap that's creating the conflict. But without documentation, it feels like a people problem when it's really a process problem. Let me give you the framework that's actually working for small businesses trying to get ahead of this. It's not complicated, but it requires honesty about how work really flows versus how you wish it flowed. Start with critical workflow mapping. You don't need to document everything. That's overwhelming and counterproductive. Focus on the workflows where breakdowns create serious problems. Client deliverables, financial close processes, compliance requirements, sales to operations handoffs, that level of criticality. For each critical workflow, identify your handoff points. Where does work or information move from one person to another? Where does a decision get made that affects downstream work? Where could someone reasonably be confused about what happens next? Then, and this is where the resistance happens, you document the protocol for each handoff. Who's responsible for what? What's the specific deliverable? Where does it go? How do you confirm it's complete and ready for the next person? What's the timeline expectation? What happens if someone's location or availability creates a constraint? And you test it in reality, not theory. Run through the workflow with people in different locations on different days. Find the gaps, because there will be gaps. The first version is never complete. Here's a use case of what good implementation looks like. Wholesale distribution business, 25 people, hybrid since 2023. Order fulfillment was breaking down constantly. Sales taking orders but warehouse not getting clear information, items being picked wrong, shipments delayed, customers frustrated. They documented the entire protocol. Order entry requirements, system fields that must be completed, automatic pick ticket generation, warehouse confirmation timeline, issue escalation process, completion verification with photo documentation, customer notification trigger. Every step explicit. Before documentation, order accuracy was around 87%, fulfillment time averaged 3.2 days, customer complaints were steady. After protocol implementation and a 2-week adjustment period, accuracy jumped to 96%. Fulfillment dropped to 1.8 days. Complaints decreased by 64%. The real kicker? New warehouse staff could get fully productive in 4 days instead of 3 weeks because the process was explicit. Nothing was tribal knowledge anymore. That's what proper documentation does. It doesn't just prevent failures, it accelerates capability. All right. If you're thinking about what workflow in your business needs documentation first, drop that in the comments. And subscribe if you haven't. We're going deep on small business risk management every week, and there's more hybrid work content coming that you'll want to catch. The mental load difference between in-office and remote work in a hybrid model is something that doesn't get discussed enough, but it's creating hidden performance gaps. When you're in the office, you absorb information passively. You hear conversations, you see what's on people's screens, you pick up on stress levels and shifting priorities just by being present. Your situational awareness is high without cognitive effort. When you're remote, all that awareness has to be actively constructed. You have to seek information, ask questions, check systems, infer context from text-based communication. It's significantly more cognitively demanding. And here's what happens without documented protocols. Remote workers either operate with information gaps, which affects their effectiveness, or they spend enormous energy trying to stay informed, which creates burnout and resentment. Use case, creative agency, hybrid team. In-office days have this natural information flow. Someone mentions a client is nervous about timeline, word spreads, everyone adjusts their urgency accordingly. Remote team members that day don't hear that. They're working at normal pace on that client's deliverables because nobody explicitly communicated the urgency shift. Work comes in-office team looks at it and thinks, did they not understand this was urgent? Remote team member finds out later there was urgency they weren't aware of, feels frustrated that nobody told them. But from the in-office perspective, everyone knew because it was discussed openly in the office. Protocol fix. Priority shifts get documented in the project management system and tagged to relevant team members within 30 minutes of the shift being identified, regardless of where people are working. Remote people get the same information at the same time. Mental load equalizes. The security protocol documentation is particularly critical because the threat landscape has evolved to specifically target hybrid work patterns. Attackers know that hybrid creates inconsistent security practices. Some people on VPNs, some not, some following protocols strictly, others improvising. Use case: small tech company, developers are hybrid. Security policy says code reviews required before deployment, two-factor authentication mandatory, VPN required for production access, all good policies. But the documentation doesn't address the reality that code review turnaround time expectations are different when reviewers are distributed. Developer needs urgent deployment, can't get timely review, pushes code without complete review to meet deadline. Or developers working from home, VPN is slow that day, they're troubleshooting production issue that's affecting customers. They bypass VPN temporarily to work faster, figuring they'll reconnect after the emergency. In that window, they access production from unsecured home network. These aren't malicious acts. They're people trying to serve the business need without clear protocols that account for hybrid realities. The security documentation has to explicitly address what's the escalation path for urgent deployments when reviewers aren't immediately available. What's the process if VPN is creating connectivity issues during production incidents? Who can authorize security protocol exceptions and under what circumstances? Without those documented protocols, you get improvisation. And improvisation in security creates vulnerability. Let's talk about the asymmetric impact on different roles, because not all positions are affected equally by poor communication protocols in hybrid environments. Individual contributors doing heads-down work are often fine. They can be productive anywhere. Coordinators, project managers, anyone whose job requires synthesizing information from multiple sources or keeping teams aligned, they're getting destroyed by lack of documentation. Use case: project coordinator for a consulting firm, hybrid team. Their job is keeping 3 simultaneous client projects on track, making sure deliverables are moving through the workflow, identifying bottlenecks, communicating status to clients. In a full in-office environment, they could see everything: who's underwater, who's waiting on something, where the blockages are. Hybrid environment, no documentation protocols? They're flying blind. They're sending messages. Hey, where are we on the X deliverable? Waiting for responses, trying to piece together project status from incomplete information. They're checking multiple systems because there's no single source of truth. They're constantly anxious about what they're missing. They burn out within 6 months, not because they're weak, because the cognitive load of coordination without visibility is unsustainable. The company loses a good coordinator, blames it on not being cut out for the role, hires someone new, same pattern repeats. The fix is protocol documentation that creates visibility, status update requirements, completion confirmation processes, centralized tracking systems with mandatory updates. Doesn't matter if you're in office or remote. You follow the protocol, information flows, coordinator can do their job. Here's something counterintuitive that catches a lot of small businesses. Tight-knit teams with strong culture, actually have harder time adapting to hybrid without documentation than more transactional teams, because tight-knit teams rely heavily on implicit understanding, shared context, ability to read each other. That all breaks down when you're distributed. Use case: design studio, 7 people, been working together for years, finishing each other's sentences kind of tight. They go hybrid, figure their strong culture will carry them through, and for a while, the existing relationships do carry them. But then they hire 2 new people in 2024. Those new people are coming into an environment where everyone else has years of shared context, inside jokes, unwritten rules, implicit understanding of quality standards and process. New people are trying to figure it out, but half the knowledge is undocumented and everyone assumes you just know this stuff. New designer asks how client revisions get handled, gets told, "Oh, just handle it." What does that mean? What's the process? What's the approval chain? What gets documented where? Nobody can really articulate it because they've never had to. They just knew. New people underperform not because they lack capability, because they lack the documented knowledge the existing team carries implicitly, and the existing team starts questioning whether they made good hires, when actually they failed to document their institutional knowledge before going hybrid. Strong culture doesn't replace documentation. In hybrid environments, documentation protects culture by making implicit knowledge explicit. The cost of not documenting communication protocols isn't just operational inefficiency, it's strategic limitation. Small businesses that can't make hybrid work effectively are at a massive competitive disadvantage for talent acquisition. Skilled workers in 2025 expect hybrid flexibility. If you can't offer it reliably, you're fishing in a smaller talent pool. But offering hybrid without documentation is worse than not offering it at all, because you get all the coordination problems without the talent benefit. People join for the flexibility, leave because the chaos is unbearable. Use case: small accounting firm competing for talent against mid-size firms. Mid-size firms offer hybrid, but they're more rigid, more bureaucratic. Small firm thinks they can differentiate with better hybrid, more flexibility, more trust, less structure. They hire someone good from a big firm, someone who values flexibility. 3 months in, that person is frustrated. The flexibility is there, but the coordination is chaos. They're constantly unclear on priorities, missing information they need, duplicating effort with colleagues. The lack of structure isn't freedom, it's dysfunction. They leave, go back to more structured environment where at least they can be effective. The firm interprets this as they couldn't handle our culture, when actually the person needed documented protocols to function in a distributed environment. The firm's competitive advantage, flexibility, became a liability because they didn't document how work flows. So here's where we are. Hybrid work is permanent. It's 2025. Commitments are made. Employee expectations are set. Competitive dynamics require it. But 54% failure rate among hybrid teams is a crisis for small businesses that can't afford that kind of inefficiency. The solution isn't abandoning hybrid. The solution isn't buying more collaboration software. The solution is documentation, making explicit the communication protocols that used to be implicit when everyone was in the same physical space. This means identifying critical workflows, mapping handoff points, documenting clear protocols for how information moves and decisions get made and work gets confirmed, then testing and refining those protocols based on real usage. It's unglamorous work. It doesn't feel urgent until coordination breaks down. But it's the difference between hybrid work being a competitive advantage or a source of constant firefighting. The businesses that are succeeding with hybrid in 2025 aren't the ones with the best technology or the most talented people. They're the ones that took the time to document how work actually flows when people are distributed. They made the invisible visible. They created clarity where there used to be assumption. That's the work. That's what protects you from being in the 54% that fails. And that's what lets you actually capture the benefits of hybrid: expanded talent pool, better work-life integration for your team, reduced real estate costs, without the chaos. If you're running a hybrid team, start this week. Pick one critical workflow, document the protocol, test it, refine it, then do the next one. It compounds. 3 months from now, you'll have fundamentally different coordination capability than your competitors who are still winging it. That's how you win in the permanent hybrid environment. Not by avoiding documentation because it feels like bureaucracy, but by embracing it as the infrastructure that makes everything else possible. Look, running a small business is risky. Running the business with a hybrid workforce adds some risk to the model. That's just reality. But running it blind is reckless. Document your process for communication between remote employees and in-office workers. You will give yourself visibility into risks before they become crises. Please make the invisible visible. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.